sacred young, use 4.
Welcome back. Praise Yahweh. This is the continuation of the war in heaven. And the title of this lesson was The Birth of a New Nation, the plot to destroy the nation of Yahweh and discredit Yahweh ben Yahweh. Praise Yahweh. This your brother Shem Yahweh ben Yahweh, the priest, the prophet, and judge. Samuel judged Israel all the days of his life, and that's what I'm here doing here in these last days, in the person and the spirit of Samuel. You can verify that in 1 Samuel chapter 7, verse 15. Praise Yahweh. Well, family, I don't want to waste no time. We got to get into this. I don't want to quit, but the time say I got to quit. So we got to finish revealing these documents that has been hidden from the way, from the view and out of the way of the people who will be waking up to this truth, to this Hebrew Israelite identity, and asking questions about Yahweh ben Yahweh and who is Yahweh ben Yahweh and what the nation of Yahweh, what they at, and their cult and these such not things. But the second part of this lesson is going to be the declaration of war. The declaration of war. And we're going to be reading through these documents and expounding here and there on there. But I want to just get through this document because it's kind of long. So bear with me, sit back, and praise Yahweh. And by the way, I'm talking to all nations, all governments. This is very, very, very important information because we have some very, very wicked things that's going on here in the halves of North America. Some very unjudicial things taking place. This system is a corrupt system. It's broken. It's breaking down. It's deteriorating. And the balances and scales are unjust. And that's why Yahweh raising up his judges, his true judges, here in the last days that will judge righteously. And that's what we're doing. We're examining the case. We're reopening the case. We're looking back. So we can see through the smoke screen. And I told you, we're going to bring proof, evidence. We're going to furnish the evidence and show you why they didn't want and don't want the nation of Yahweh to rise. We already rising. There's nothing anyone can do about it. It's prophecy. Let's read. And there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought, and his angels prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, called the devil, and Satan, which deceived the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Revelation 12, 7 through 9. The preceding scripture from the book of Revelation describes a war that is to occur at the so-called end of time. And what immediately comes to mind is a battle of arms, weapons, and violence. Could there be another meaning for this war that is to be waged between the angels? Question. The word war in the scripture is transliterated from the Greek word polemos, which is the root word of polemic in the English vocabulary. Polemic means a controversial argument as one against some opinion, a doctrine, etc. A person who argues in opposition to another, a controversialist. of or pertaining to a polemic, controversial, polemic, controversial, polemos war, an aggressive attack on or refutation of the opinions or principles of another. B. The art or practice of disposition of a disputation or controversy, usually used in plural but singular or plural in construction. 2. An aggressive controversialist, a disputant. We're going to stop right there. We'll stop right there. Did y'all hear? Did y'all hear what it said there on line 1A? An aggressive attack on or refutation of the opinions or principles of another. Okay. Based on these definitions, it can certainly be surmised that the war in Revelation 12:7-1-9 does not solely reference a physical battle, but rather a controversy, an aggressive attack on another's opinions, doctrines, or principles. Further examining the word war itself shows that it was other meanings, among which have words with a war of words, hatred and hate. Project Megiddo was complied from sources who not only have a controversy and a dispute with the nation of Yahweh, but who also hates us and want to totally refute our beliefs. What sources? So, brothers and sisters, Project Megiddo, that's the operation of the FBI that they took upon when they went investigating and started this research in this case against Yahweh ben Yahweh in this so-called Project Megiddo report. And it's kind of funny how they named these operations, brothers and sisters. They named this operation Project Megiddo. Now, y'all need to go look up what Megiddo is and what happened in Megiddo. But, yes. And also, like I said, the word Jericho, you're going to find the word Rico inside of the word Jericho. They had another one called Operation Jericho. I can't make this stuff up. Do they know something you don't know when it comes to these biblical revelations concerning our people? Because I'm beginning to find out that they know. They just don't want us to know how much they know. So, in this Project Megiddo report, it said it was complied from sources who not only have a controversy and a dispute with the nation of Yahweh, but who also hate us and want to totally refute our beliefs. What sources? Let's talk about those sources. Because these sources went back and reported to the FBI against the nation of Yahweh. Why? What were their motives? What did they have to gain or what did they have to lose for reporting these false allegations against the nation of Yahweh? And the sources are the Anti-Defamation League and the Southern Poverty Law Center. That's right, I said it. The Anti-Defamation League and the Southern Poverty Law Center. These agencies are the ones who are going back reporting false allegations back to the FBI concerning certain groups who they deem hate groups. Now, I beg to differ that their credibility they're uncredible. They are an uncredible source because remember, they reported that there were going to be some type of terrorist event going on in the millennium. None of that never happened. None of that never happened. So that's false. Y'all need to get that down because these are the sources that has been printing all of these allegations concerning the Hebrew Israelites. Now, I'm not going to say that we as the Hebrew Israelites are a perfect nation. After all, we just suffered for over 400 and something years of slavery. We've been broken down as a people, mentally disturbed, mentally affected. So we are going through a process of healing as well as an awakening to all of these facts and this reality. Because as we begin to read in our scriptures, these things happening to us today as it did happen to our ancestors yesterday. And that's why we telling the world now who we are. We claiming our identity. We claiming our heritage. We claiming our name. And because we're doing that, it's ruffling feathers, especially the Anti-Defamation League and the Southern Poverty Law Center, which we believe to be racist organizations. So, with that being said, it says the Anti-Defamation League and the Southern Poverty Law Center, who take strong, hostile opposition with the fact that the nation of Yahweh and the so-called black people of America, which are the descendants of slaves, are in reality the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Israel, the true chosen people of the God of the Bible, YAHWEH, Yahweh. As will be conclusively shown in this article, there can be no other logical basis for including the nation of Yahweh in the Project Megiddo report, other than to allow these two organizations an opportunity to surreptitiously make an aggressive, abhorrent verbal attack against us. The Anti-Defamation League and the Southern Poverty Law Center detest us because of our history, our language, our name, and because we openly and rightfully utter the name of our God, YAHWEH, Yahweh. The FBI has used biased information from these sources in its publications and has pushed the envelope well beyond the fragile line that exists between law enforcement concerns and constitutionally protected liberties. Let's stop right there, brothers and sisters. So as we see, this word war, it has been a verbal attack against the nation of Yahweh. A verbal attack by these two agencies, the Anti-Defamation League and the Southern Poverty Law Center. Now, all because of these two groups, these two agencies that report back to the FBI, I think they need to be on the investigation and see what's going on in their background and why do they report false and biased information and not being held accountable for. It says, to accomplish the worst kind of assault, a hate crime against an entire faith in the people. So, the Anti-Defamation League and the Poverty Law Center, brothers and sisters, here it is, we waking up, coming back into our history, our language, our name, and we worshiping in our God now. Just that within itself would not make the enemies of the so-called black people here in America happy. Especially to find out that we making a claim that we traced our heritage back and found out we be the Hebrews, we be the Hebrew Israelites of the Bible. That caused people to ask questions. Well, if they say they the people of the Bible, well, who are those people over there that's claiming to be God's chosen people? Because you know the book say, I know those who say they are Jews and are not. Everybody knows that scripture in Revelation. That's the revelation. That's the, what you think Revelations is all about? We here in the end times. What, y'all don't want the revelation? So at the end, when the revelation come, when this argument come in the end about, I know those that say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Now, we didn't write that. We didn't publish that. Remember, we wasn't allowed to read or comprehend the Bible for ourselves due to slavery. We had to understand what they taught us. But see, now we're able to read between the lines, and we making a claim that we be the Hebrews. We are the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And because of that claim, and especially because of Yahweh ben Yahweh laid the foundation, and he was the one that was sending out all this literature and these publications concerning who we were. He had his own publishing company. The internet wasn't at its peak at that time. And that's another thing y'all need to, Yahweh ben Yahweh, see, we living in a time where technology has, you could do anything now on computers. And just think of what Yahweh ben Yahweh was doing with the little bit of technology he had in his day and time. So that's one of the reasons why, they ain't want him to have no contact through radio, television, internet, or phone, or computers, etc. Because you can only slow this information down for so long, but you can't hide dark. You can't hide light. Light overpower darkness, and Yahweh ben Yahweh is the great light. And that's why this truth is just coming out. And that's why you see all the verbal attack against the nation of Yahweh. Not only just the nation of Yahweh, but us as the Hebrew Israelites as a whole. The seed of Abraham. They, all because of the Poverty Law Center, they label us black Hebrew Israelites. Not a part of no, we're not black Hebrew Israelites. We're Israelites. It's not a religion. It's our history. It's our culture. We had a language and we had a land. And because of trying to hide God's chosen people, that's why I say in Psalms 83, we are the hidden ones, his hidden ones. See, Psalms 83 explains it all. You sat down at a round table at a council. You had crafty counsels against us. That's right. So you took crafty counsels off against us to cut our name off so that we would not be remembered no more as Israel. And being that Yahweh ben Yahweh came and made that declaration, it made a lot of people unhappy, especially the Southern Poverty Law Center and the Anti-Defamation League. Yes, it did. It pissed them off. The Bible says you shall know the truth, and the truth is what sets us free. Notice is how we going to be set free with the truth that's setting us free. So it has been a verbal attack against us, and we consider that to be a hate crime. That's right. This document is very long, so we're gonna probably have to do another part because it's a very long document. See, Yahweh Ben Yahweh already had stuff set up for us, brothers and sisters, because he knew that was he. See, he was before our time. He came down in time, on time, to set us up for what was to come, brothers and sisters. And this is what we raising up here doing in the last days. This is what you call the miracle. The manifestations of the sons of Yahweh coming out into plain view where you can see and doing the works of Yahweh and continuing Yahweh's will and his story. And that's to bring salvation to the nations. The Bible says the Son of Yahweh comes with healings in his wings. The Bible said Yahweh Ben Yahweh is the Prince of Peace. Praise Yahweh. Yes, he the Prince of Peace. Yahweh Ben Yahweh didn't teach nobody to do wickedness. He was a righteous teacher. Praise Yahweh. So let's get back into this document, hate crime. A hate crime, by definition, is a crime in which the defendant intentionally selects a victim, or in the case of a property crime, the property which is the object of the crime, because of the actual or perceived race, color, religion, national origin, ethnicity, gender, or sexual orientation of any person. In addition, a hate crime does not always involve physical contact, physical violence, or physical assault. As defined by the Anti-Defamation League in its model legislation, a bias-motivated crime can also include harassment, menacing, and intimidations. Harass. The root word of harassment means to trouble, worry, or torment, as with cares, debts, repeated questions, etc., and to trouble with repeated raids or attacks. Menacing is synonymous with threatening and harmful. Intimidations come from the word intimidate, which means to make timid, make afraid, daunt, or to force or deter with threats or violence. Each of these words is the base for the penal code of offenses such as stalking and terrorist threats, offenses that criminalize both physical acts as well as abusive, degrading, and frightening oral and or written statements, bias-motivated, hostile, or hatred speech, or other disrespectful and discriminatory behavior can be illegal as well when they directly incite perpetrators to commit violence against persons or property, or if they place a potential victim in reasonable fear of physical injury. During President Clinton's State of the Union address on January 27, 2000, he urged passage of the Hate Crime Prevention Act with the following comments. He says, "Look around. We have members in this Congress from virtually every racial, ethnic, and religious background. And I think you would agree that America is stronger because of it. You also have to agree that all those differences you just clapped for all too often spark hatred and division, even here at home. This is not the American way. We must draw the line." There is a spirited movement to pass hate crime legislation because hate crimes differ from other crimes in their effect on victims and community stability. Hate crimes are often especially brutal or injurious. Victims usually feel traumatized and terrified. Families of victims often feel frustrated and powerless. Others in the community who share the victim's characteristics may feel victimized and vulnerable. Hate incidents. Hate incidents. Hate incidents can escalate and prompt retaliatory action. Hate crimes and hate incidents create community-wide unrest. The nation of Yahweh was intentionally selected for Project Megiddo because of its actual national origins and ethnicity, Hebrew, and because of its perceived race and religion. Those who choose to victimize us in this report holds an envious hatred for our nation, our founder, and our beliefs. The craft and skills, however, was to make it appear that the nation of Yahweh deserved to be among a list of potential millennium domestic terrorists by using words of war, words carefully chosen to paint a picture of us as a group to be feared, ridiculed, and avoided. Nebulous and vague words studiously selected for their dubious implications. The semantic warfare is more than merely expressing an opinion. Why? Because cloaked in an FBI report, these biased, polemic words have a pretense of significance and take on an undeserved look of legitimacy. We shall expose how this process was accomplished by responding to quotes from the report. But first, to lay an appropriate foundation, take a brief look at the nation of Yahweh, laborers, toilers, past experiences with the United States justice system. Now, before we get into this next part, brothers and sisters, like I said, these are the tactics that's being used against us. And I want the world to know. I want the people out there that's listening to know. If you may be watching this, and whoever may be watching this, that all these allegations that they use to deem the Hebrew Israelites as a hate group, as a cult, you got to sit there and ask yourself, what make us a cult? Because we coming back into our culture? And when I say make us, I'm not including myself within a group, within a camp. I'm talking about us as a whole nation of Israelites. Just like any other country or any other nation or nationality of people. Are you going to deem that whole other nationality a cult? So all nationalities, because you speak your language, you claim your heritage, you all that automatically make you a cult and make you a hate group. We wasn't the ones that invented hate. You see, as we find out that we are the Hebrew Israelites, and when we read the scriptures, we can see all the nations that are recorded in the book that hate us and why they hated us. And as soon as we making our claim to the world of who we are, you repeating history all over again. You're trying to attack the message by saying that we are a cult, that we are black Hebrew Israelites. Well, if it's black Hebrew Israelites, you must have white Hebrew Israelites. And it's time to get rid of that white and black topic. We know who we are now. And we finding out who you are now. See, God, Yahweh, the God of the Bible, he hate wickedness, and he hate unrighteousness, and he hate injustice, and he hates false balances and false scales. All those things that I just mentioned, you practice that here in America. And that's why the system is failing, because of the hate and the illegal actions against people that have rights. Unalienable God Yahweh given rights that was endowed to us by our Creator. Ain't that's what you have quoted? Yeah. Past tortoise battle. The nation of Yahweh has an identifiable history as a legitimate religious organization, which is included in the Encyclopedia of American Religions. Did y'all hear that? I'm going to read that again. The nation of Yahweh has an identifiable history as a legitimate, meaning legal, religious organization. Imagine that. So you mean to tell me the nation of Yahweh ain't recognized as no camp? It was recognized as a legitimate, like it's legitimate. It's not illegitimate. It's not an illegitimate cult. You see what I'm saying? This that word play that they use to make the nation of Yahweh like it's some dangerous organization. But we see here it was a legitimate organization, which is included in the Encyclopedia of America. See, the nation of Yahweh ben Yahweh, the nation of Yahweh, and Yahweh ben Yahweh went down in the encyclopedia. That's right. Went down in the encyclopedia, and I had that encyclopedia. It's in the libraries. Go look in your libraries. It's in there. You're going to see it. It's going to say the nation of Yahweh, and it's going to say Yahweh ben Yahweh, the founder of the nation of Yahweh. That teaches the so-called African Americans that they are the true descendants of Israel, the Israelites, not black Hebrew Israelites. That's another wordplay. That's another disgraceful word to downplay who we really are. You're always trying to put that black label on us. Yeah, we know what comes with being black, what black means. We looked up the definitions. It says, the nation of Yahweh has an identity. I can't help but keep stressing this, because the nation of Yahweh has an identifiable history as a legitimate religious organization, which is included in the Encyclopedia of American Religions, while incorrectly designated as a black supremacist and racist faced by disputants. The nation of Yahweh welcomes adherents from all races and ethnic groups. In fact, there are currently worshippers of variant races from more than 40 cities in America who gather to celebrate our religious holy days and feasts at least 3 times each year. In the year 2000, we will be celebrating our 20th annual Passover and Feast of Unleavened Bread, Feast of Weeks, and Feast of Tabernacles. The federal courts have recognized the nation of Yahweh in the civil case of Lawson versus Wainwright, case number 83-8409, and Civ Aaron Nosvitz, in which the United States District Court Judge Sidney Aaron Nosvitz declared that the Hebrew Israelite faith is a bona fide religion. Come on out of here, somebody. Good God. Did y'all hear that? I said the Hebrew Israelites' faith is a bona fide religion. It's not a cult. You see? The judge deemed it as a Hebrew Israelite faith. It is a bona fide religion. However, in 1990, our legitimate bona fide religion was unjustly named as the racketeering enterprise in a 3-count federal RICO indictment, subjecting an entire nation and an entire faith to criminal prosecution and public prosecution. What they do that at, y'all? Can somebody out there please explain to me how they do that? I want to know, how do you go from being a bona fide, recognized, legitimate organization and establishments known as the Hebrew Israelites to ending up being a criminal on the criminal prosecution and public prosecution list? So now, all y'all, I want to ask them over there in the Vatican. Pope, let me ask you this, Pope, to the new Pope out there. Everybody getting their questions in. Let me get mine in. I want to ask a question. Would it be lawful or unlawful for them to come to the Vatican and arrest the Pope for all the sexual charges that those priests been touching those little boys out there, playing with those little boys, and those nuns that don't get them none, can't get none, out there touching them little girls out there? And how y'all paid over all this money, over billions of dollars, this hush money, to keep these priests safe, moving them to somewhere else. Why not go just arrest the Pope and bring down the Vatican for what the rest of those priests out there doing? Just blame it on the Pope, because he the one is the head Pope over all of them. Because that's what y'all did to Yahweh ben Yahweh. Is that lawful or unlawful? That question right there is for the new Pope. What they did to Yahweh ben Yahweh, is it lawful or unlawful? Should you be held accountable for what those priests doing to those boys in the Catholic Church? And how y'all hushing it up? I don't hear the Anti-Defamation League reporting that. Do y'all have any reports on that? The priests sleeping with all the boys and the nuns touching the girls because they can't get none? Well, y'all gonna have to do something about this unjust and these false balances and scale that my father Yahweh is upset about. Because he ready to bring down your whole organization too as well. He said he gonna remove your lampstand. Your ability to, you won't have the ability to deceive the whole world anymore. So that's the question that I wanted to impose. How can y'all subjugate a whole entire nation and an entire faith to criminal prosecution and public prosecution? While members of any religious organization are not immune from criminal persecution, defining a RICO enterprise as an organized religion is not only an attack on religious freedom, but it is also interfering with an individual's free exercise of religion. Never should alleged or perceived acts of individuals be extended to the whole entire group. It is unthinkable to label all white people guilty for beating and killing of American slaves, all Jews as being responsible for the Atlantic slave trade, to accuse all Germans as participant and responsible for the atrocities committed by Hitler and the Nazi regime. But yet, the nation of Yahweh was permitted to be indicted as a whole. As a whole now. Just that within itself should make the world stop and ask questions, where they do that at? This is wrong. And for you Hebrew Israelites out there that's always speaking up against Yahweh ben Yahweh, your brother, because y'all hate your own brother. Just him, we reading about him. He the one on these files. He the one got all this stuff documented. He the one built something for you. See? He the one that this report I'm reading about. See, the Anti-Defamation League and the Provident Law Center, before they mess with y'all, they mess with Yahweh ben Yahweh first. Why? Because of this truth. Y'all want to say Yahweh ben Yahweh is a false prophet, he ain't this and he ain't that. Well, them words that he carried and them words that he uttered and declared, they carried some weight because it got somebody upset. And that's the problem. We don't care who get upset about the truth. See, we born to tell the truth. We are born and destined to tell the truth, regardless. You see? There's a great price to pay for not telling the truth. And it's also a price to pay for telling the truth. I'd rather stick with the man that if I don't tell his truth, if I don't tell Yahweh's truth and his son's truth, I'd rather worry about what he can do to me versus the one that's going to get mad for me telling him the truth. Because if you touch Yahweh anointed or do his prophets any harm, you might as well tie a rope around your neck and cast it off the... Tie a rope around your neck and tie it to a rock and throw it off the side and drown yourself. Touch not Yahweh's prophets and do his prophets no harm. That's right. You heard what I said. Yahweh said, touch not his anointed and do his prophets no harm. And that's why y'all witnessing what y'all witnessing in America right now. It's Yahweh just tearing the hell out of this place for what y'all did to his son. Not only his son, what y'all did to a whole nation of people. Not only what y'all did to a whole nation of people, but what y'all are doing to this world. Your time is up of governing. We read the Declaration of Independence. When the government gets out of hand, it's time for us to set up and establish our own government. And that's what the nation of Yahweh was established for. It was set up so we don't have to. See, long as we keeping the laws of our God, Yahweh, y'all should be happy because Yahweh is a righteous God. And we know we need to be right by our God, Yahweh. That's what make us to become good citizens, the good people to the world, because we keep our law. Loving our neighbor as ourselves. Honoring our mother and our father. Not covetous or wanting somebody else's stuff. Not sleeping around with other people, husbands or wives. All those are moral codes that we follow. And you don't want a man like Yahweh ben Yahweh teaching law, morality. Praise Yahweh. So the court denied all challenges to the indictment in a 5-long trial against a total of 16 defendants commenced in January 1992 with the following results. Yahweh ben Yahweh and 6 of the nation's citizens were convicted of conspiracy to commit RICO only. 9 others were found not guilty, and no one was found guilty of the racially motivated killings of white devils as alleged by the government. They wasn't found guilty on that. See, those were alleged. It was none of that. Couldn't prove none of that. Yahweh ben Yahweh wasn't teaching that. Unhappy with the verdict, in a fit of disgust, prosecutors pursued to capital murder cases in the state courts against Yahweh ben Yahweh and 5 others, using the same evidence, the same witnesses as in the federal case. And again, the jury returned not guilty verdicts on Yahweh ben Yahweh and 3 co-defendants. The very next day, charges were dismissed against another co-defendant for 1-degree, first-degree murder. And the state agreed to an unprecedented no contest plea and gave an unheard of a sweet deal to the defendant who was charged with the most heinous of all the allegations, a beheading. Still not satisfied and seeking revenge for their federal and state court defeats, the prosecutors again attempted state murder charges against 4 followers in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Once again, after authorities held these men for 5 months, the prosecutors asked that all charges be dismissed. All allegations that Yahweh ben Yahweh ordered anyone to be harmed or killed came from suspected government agents, provocators, and disgruntled ex-believers who became FBI informers. They not only received benefits for their lives, but have, since the federal trial, also demonstrated their true nature. Let me stop right there for a minute. Did y'all hear that, family? Where they do that at? So y'all don't see the conspiracy and the plot and the motives of, you going to the extent that the judge started finding them not guilty, dismissing charges. Y'all still going back there filling out charges, trying to try them another way. See, this is the craftiness. This is the craftiness of the system and how it's unjust, unjudicial, and the scales are unbalanced. And that's why Yahweh say he gonna judge this nation. Yes. America, Babylon, they want to make great. It's being judged. And it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. Yes, it is. So, as we can see that Yahweh, they kept dismissing these charges. Then not only that, you had informants, FBI informants, implanted in the nation of Yahweh. They want to bring Yahweh ben Yahweh down so bad, they implanted informants who they were paid informants. Paid to do what? Lie. To help fabricate a case. But see, that's why the judge kept throwing this stuff out. It didn't make no sense to him. The whole while, it's the system trying to entrap and entangle and judicially murder Yahweh ben Yahweh, and to try to wipe out the nation of Yahweh. That's why I say in Revelation, and the Satan was mad. He was trying to kill from Yahweh ben Yahweh giving birth to this nation, to these people. What he was trying to do before he can give birth to the nation of Yahweh, they were trying to kill us off as a nation, as a people. Tarnish this truth, tarnish this message. Make it sound like this is a supremacist group. Make it sound like this a hate group. It's a cult group. Try to compare the group with all the rest of these other cult leaders. All they people like Charles Manson and Koresh and all those people. Y'all can't compare Yahweh Ben Yahweh to none of them wicked men. I don't even know why y'all got Yahweh Ben Yahweh on the FBI files with all those wicked men. Oh yes, I do, because the book said y'all was gonna labor him and number him with the murderers. Y'all call him a malefactor. See, the man 1900 years ago, y'all call him a malefactor. You said he had a demon or a devil on him, but yet the people still followed him. So this man claimed to be the son today, and they calling him and saying all these same things about him. You turn your head and hate him. Well, that's what y'all did 1900 years ago, and you still doing it today. Clap for yourself for fulfilling prophecy. What else we have? They not only receive benefits for their lies, but have since the federal trial also demonstrated their true colors. The validity of the federal convictions is still in question. Because of these state court acquittals and dismissals, the federal indictment remains the subject of judicial and public controversy, because the federal prosecutors charge an entire faith and entire nation. See? That's the issue, y'all. This ain't over with. Y'all messed up when you charged the whole faith in an entire nation, deeming them out to be what? Supremacists and cults and killers and all these things. What? To do what? To cause people to not want to come to Yahweh. It says, both the trial judge and the decision from the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals support the significance of separating the whole from the individual. The court, this is what the court said. I have found it interesting as the trial progressed to learn more about the religious as espoused and preached by the defendant, Yahweh Ben Yahweh, and I do not cast aspersions upon it or the beliefs of anybody who follows the nation of Yahweh. Not all of the members of the temple supported or were engaged in homicidal activities that are subject to this case, but there is distinctions between the conspirators in this case and the general population of the temple. We recognize and stress this difference. This case is not the prosecution of a religion. The religion had adherents who never became involved in any illegal activity. Alright. Let us look down right here and say all of the witnesses who testified that their violent acts were ordered by Yahweh Ben Yahweh were either granted immunity by the prosecution or given a sweetheart plea bargain in return for their testimony. Robert Regier, for example, who was the government's central and only witness as to the so-called White Devil murderers. After being accepted into the witness protection program, he was arrested for a criminal act. Robert Regier was recently indicted for theft in California and indicted for a 1984 murder committed in Jersey. Stop right there. So you see, brothers and sisters, the very same person who is the known Judas in Yahweh Ben Yahweh's case, who turned state, who was the key witness, who was an uncredible witness. He was not a credible witness because he was found lying in his testimony several times, which he should have been impeached. But being that they cheating, they're going to keep him in there. So what happened was Robert Regier got out, and I think he went and wrote some checks or did something, but ended up going right back to prison again for life. So he did what he did to Yahweh Ben Yahweh, falsely lied on Yahweh Ben Yahweh, and was still out there committing crimes. And this is what Yahweh Ben Yahweh was trying to tell the people. He didn't teach Robert Regier to kill, steal, or do nothing. Robert Rozier, Lion Bob, was the way he was when he came to the nation. Matter of fact, Yahweh ben Yahweh was his only and last hope. And the government took advantage of Robert Rozier's past, his record, and tried to pin all those murders that was unsolved in Miami. They used that tactic to pin them all on Robert Rozier, threaten him with the electric chair, and he did what most of the people will do today. They turned their back on an innocent man to save their life. Praise Yahweh. It said, and who were not implicated in this conspiracy, to agree that the whole should not be judged by the acts of a few, and to then proceed to do just that is unconscionable. What else we got? Did we read that already? No, I don't think so. Okay. Meager attempts to distance the religion from the prosecution of individual conspirators were futile. Upholding the indictment of an entire nation and the entire faith as a racketeering enterprise has had the factual results of branding all followers and worshippers as unindicted co-conspirators. The prejudicial error that occurred when both courts permitted this unprecedented abuse of the RICO statute is demonstrated by the unjust treatment of the individuals not implicated in the criminal matter, such as a Miami nurse who was threatened with losing her job because she chose to wear her diadem, white head wrap, instead of a cap, which had been okayed prior to the trial. A South Florida defense witness who was similarly fired from her secretarial job when it was learned that she would be testified for the defense and as a member of the faith. The Birmingham, Alabama couple whose competency as parents was attacked and unsuccessfully challenged in the court because they chose to teach their children at home. The Army officer who was harassed to belonging to the Black KKK. The follower who was arrested in 1984 for an alleged murder in Pittsburgh when prosecutors knew he was not even named by any witness as having perpetrated in the defense. The failure of the courts to protect the nation of Yahweh as a whole has given the Anti-Defamation League and the Southern Poverty Law Center a device behind which to hide their true hateful intent, attempting to exhibit the free exercise of our religious belief. Project Megiddo has continued with this deceptive maneuver by subjecting all of us to an unwarranted associated with the so-called fringed groups who do not observe to be linked, extrapolated predictions of future violence as atrociously articulated in the report. Stop right there. Did y'all hear that? Project Megiddo has continued with this deceptive maneuver by subjecting all of us to an unwarranted association with so-called fringed groups. See, Yahweh ben Yahweh, you see what they're trying to do? And that's how they're going to get all y'all. That's what they want to do. Try to label you all up as fringe groups. You see? You better put your friend. See, that's them. They just counting you up. Want to know who all out there. You see? That's why they got you labeled as a fringe groups. We do not deserve to be linked with extrapolated predictions of future violence as atrociously articulated in the report. Project Megiddo was distributed to the International Association of Chiefs of Police in October 1999, and its existence and contents started to leak into the press reports, prompting the FBI to publish a redacted version on its website. One press report heard on Good Morning America on 11/22/1999 resulted in a memo seen circulated on the internet on 12/7/99. That memo warned folks to stay home on New Year's Eve because groups such as World Church of the Creator, aka KKK, and Black Hebrew activists are reported to be preparing to launch a holy war separating church and government on the eve of 2000. On 12/27, two Miami worshipers were astonished, distressed, and sickened to find copies of the same memo being distributed on their jobs. Did y'all hear that, brothers and sisters? So the Anti-Defamation League, these people put out a report saying that it was going to be some type of holy war with the AKA KKK and the Black Hebrew activists. None of that is true. None of that even happened, brothers and sisters. Once again, that is who? That is them lying once again. Anti-Defamation League and the Property Law Center. That's why they need it. See, those false allegations, that's lying. That's slander. Right? Inclusions of the nation of Yahweh among such groups is engaging in a word war against it. To belittle the teachings of Yahweh ben Yahweh, to frighten away those who may be interested in learning more about its tenets, and to willfully encourage and incite violent crimes motivated by hatred and bias against the nation of Yahweh. We're going to stop right there, brothers and sisters. We're going to stop right there before we go into the words of war. We'll go into the words of war on our next segment. But as y'all are beginning to see, the picture is becoming clear. Yahweh ben Yahweh had no motives or intention or giving no orders to kill nobody. Now, according to the facts and the evidence, there was never no evidence found on Yahweh ben Yahweh, no weapons of nothing to even put this whole lie together, to frame Yahweh ben Yahweh, to make it look like he gave orders to do these things. Yahweh ben Yahweh gave orders to be righteous, to be upright, to be honorable, to be chaste, to be good, to be moral, to be ethical, to be sagacious, erudite. All of these things, Yahweh ben Yahweh ordered us to be that. See? He told the crooks, y'all stay away from me, crooks. See? What, you trying to build a kingdom separate from mine? If Nehemiah don't want to follow all the rules around here, he gonna have to leave. That's what Yahweh ben Yahweh was telling Robert Rozier, the head state witness, because of his character and how he was not acting right. So we're gonna close out right there, brothers and sisters. I hope y'all learned something in this lesson, gather some information to help you, because you know a lot of people come up against the nation of Yahweh, against the people that, you know. And let me tell you, the nation of Yahweh, y'all want to know where the nation of Yahweh at. Well, where Yahweh been Yahweh? What? See, the nation of Yahweh is a very, very unique establishment, because Yahweh ben Yahweh set it up because he knew that he wasn't going to be there with us